what is the behavior of the person who has actually transcended these modes. Then Krishna explains the symptoms and conduct of a person who has transcended the modes from verse 22 to 25. So we have discussed about the modes, their nature, their symptoms, the consequences, and of a person who has transcended the modes. But we have not yet discussed how to actually transcend the modes themselves. How does that happen? That threshold, how does one really cross? What is the process for that? And that is discussed in verse 26, and a conclusion is given in 27. So together, 26 and 27 kind of points towards the process to overcome the three modes. So this is verse 26, and let me also see my. Can you still see my screen?
We can see verse 26. What you have?
Yeah.
You are seeing Veda base?
No.
Verse 26.
You are seeing the slide still?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mamcha.
Okay. Means I didn't want to let it go blank because I just changed it to Veda based screen. So this is verse 26, translation and purport by translation. One who engages in full devotional service, unfailing in all circumstances, at once transcends the modes of material nature and thus comes to the level of Brahman. Purport. This verse is a reply to Arjuna's third question. What is the means of attaining the transcendental position? As explained before, the material world is acting under the spell of the modes of material nature. One should not be disturbed by the activities of the modes of nature. Instead of putting his consciousness into such activities, he may transfer his consciousness to Krishna activities. Krishna activities are known as Bhakti Yoga, always acting for Krishna. This includes not only Krishna, but his different plenary expansions such as Rama and Narayana. He has innumerable expansions. One who is engaged in the service of any of the forms of Krishna or his plenary expansions is considered to be transcendentally situated. One should also note that all the forms of Krishna are fully transcendental, blissful, full of knowledge and eternal. Such personalities of Godhead are omnipotent and omniscient, and they possess all transcendental qualities. So if one engages himself in the service of Krishna or his plenary expansions with unfailing determination, although these modes of material nature are very difficult to overcome, one can overcome them easily. This has already been explained in the 7th chapter. One who surrenders unto Krishna at once surmounts the influence of the modes of material nature. To be in Krishna consciousness or in devotional service means to acquire equality with Krishna. The Lord says that his nature is eternal, blissful, and full of knowledge, and the living entities are part and parcel of the Supreme, as gold particles are part of a gold mine. Thus, the living entity in a spiritual position is as good as gold, as good as Krishna in quality. The difference of individuality continues, otherwise, Otherwise, there would be no question of Bhakti Yoga. Bhakti Yoga means that the Lord is there, the devotee is there, and the exchange of love between the Lord and the devotee is there. Therefore, the individuality of two persons is present in the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the individual person. Otherwise, there would be no meaning to Bhakti Yoga. If one is not situated in the same transcendental position with the Lord, one cannot serve the Supreme Lord. To be a personal assistant to a king, one must acquire the qualifications. Thus, the qualification is to become Brahman or freed from all material contamination. It is said in the Vedic literature, Brahman, one can attain the Supreme Brahman by becoming Brahman. This means that one must qualitatively become one with Brahman. By attainment of Brahman, one does not lose his eternal Brahman identity as an individual. So, this is the not so long, not so short purport of Prabhupada. So, I read the purport in one go because we will be addressing some parts of it, and also we'll be addressing other questions that comes along while reading this verse. So, since today we are like few, I have the liberty to keep it more interactive. So I do have some questions in my mind that I'm planning to address in this verse. Still, I would like to ask you, what are the questions that comes to your mind when you hear this translation or the purport? Mainly the translation. Let's first stick to the translation, then we can go to the purport. When you read the translation, what are the questions that naturally comes to your mind that you would like to be explained or explored? Anyone? Yes, Pur.
Probably the part where it says unfailing in all circumstances. Because right now I feel that I'm failing even when there are no such challenges as such. They're not very difficult challenges that I have right now in practicing bhakti. Yet I'm not able to give my full potential to it. So
So
I would like to know what
let's complete the question. So what do you think? What is the
I
you
don't know.
stated a fact. So what is the question?
Yes, the question is how to engage in full devotional service without failing.
Okay, how to engage in devotional service without failing. Okay.
Yes,
Any other questions that comes along?
and then, well, coming to the level of Brahman also. It's not saying merging with the Brahman, I know that.
But still, why is Brahman here?
Yes, I don't know that.
Okay, that's very apt and what do you call it? Reasonable to question. So I was also planning to address both of those questions. So thank you. And any other question that comes to your mind or anybody else's mind, that if currently one question I can paraphrase is, currently my practice of bhakti is not unfailing in all circumstances. So how can I actually get to that state is one question. And the other one is, why is even Brahman being mentioned here? So is there any other question that comes to anyone else's mind? Hare
So
Krishna.
is he talking about Lord Brahma or or Krishna?
By the usage of the word Brahma.
Brahma, yes.
Okay, that is another question. But I think we could clarify that first and before going to other ones. Is there anything else? So the word here, Brahma, is used, but it is actually Brahman, which is the impersonal effulgence of Krishna. That's what this word referring to, not to Lord Brahma or to Krishna himself. Like, of course, the impersonal Brahman is a feature of Krishna. So the impersonal feature is being referred to here. Does that clarify, Madharendra?
Yeah, so it's like the Brahman, is that what you're...
Yeah, it is the Brahman effulgence, the impersonal Brahman effulgence of Krishna. That is what is being referred to in Brahma.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Sundarananda Prabhu?
Yes, true. I was also thinking along the same lines what you said, unfailing in all circumstances. I could see myself trying it briefly, but how do we stay in that mode of transcending and staying there? That was my question.
So sometimes we transcend, sometimes not. But how do we
Correct. Yeah,
consistently stay in this transcendental platform? Okay,
exactly. Correct, Prabhu. Yes.
thank you. Thank you, Prabhu. Have you already landed?
Yes, Prabhu. I just landed. I'm in transit now, so I'll stay muted for the moment. The
Thank
timing
you.
worked out. It's not that I'm not that dedicated. It just worked out. I didn't have anything else to do. That's fine.
Thank you. I think we have these questions. If you have anything else, you could always post it here. But I think we will be exploring these questions. That was the plan. The questions that I was planning to explore is one, for sure, why is Brahma here? Brahman, why are we speaking about the impersonal Brahman at all? What is the reason? And also, I do feel very far away from Krishna. Sometimes bhakti feels more alive. So it is all connected to that aspect of unfailing. So sometimes there is ability to push through, as Sundaranand Prabhu said, sometimes not. And also this feeling that sometimes suddenly heart feels very dry in bhakti, Krishna feels very far away. How do we actually handle that part? And also the question of, you wanted to say something?
No, it was from before the hand.
Oh, okay. So how do we actually get to a state where we are consistently remaining in that transcendental platform? How does that happen? When does that happen? So these are some of the questions for sure. And let's explore them first and then go through the purport also. And here in this particular, so I'm making this marker for editing. I'm realizing it's very hard for me to find a marker. So this is an editing marker. From here, I'm going to cut pretty much for the recording. So here we will be discussing how to become unwavering in Bhakti Yoga. how to remain in a transcendental position. And we will also discuss why is Krishna speaking about Brahman at all in this particular verse. Why is Bhakti being discussed here in the Jnana section? That also we will discuss. So going by the verse, means the word means like unfailing. Also, it means that not giving into temptations, because that's what makes us fail. So choosing the right thing consistently, that could be one understanding of the word avyabhacharena, that one continues to choose the right thing consistently. So avyabhacharena can mean that one does not go to the wrong path or something like that. So without getting distracted, one has to practice bhakti yogena sevate. One has to serve using through bhakti yoga. One has to practice bhakti yoga. So this is the only verse in the Bhagavad Gita where Krishna uses the compound word bhakti yoga directly. Other places you will see Krishna uses the word bhakti or he uses the word yoga separately. But this is the only verse in the Bhagavad Gita where Krishna clearly uses the compound word bhakti yoga very directly. So such a person actually goes beyond the modes, Brahma, and attains the Brahman platform. So while practicing unfailing devotional service, one transcends the influence of the three modes. So we have also heard another word called as ahaituki in the Bhagavatam. Here this word is they both are different. Tuki is like more unmotivated in the sense not lacking motivation, but having pure motivation, nothing other than serving Krishna. That is ahaituki, not having any other motivation. And avyabhacharena is unfailing. So here, why Krishna is using the word avyabhacharena instead of ahaituki is this whole section, if you remember, it is a section of Jnana Yoga from chapters 13 to 18. The yogi in discussion is actually a Jnana yogi. He is not a bhakti yogi. So that is one reason that Krishna is using the word unfailing instead of saying without any other motivation, ahaituki, because the yogi may be unfailing in his bhakti yoga practices, because we saw that in the verse 13.8 to 12 in that block. I think it is the 11th verse where Krishna says, when he was discussing the different processes of knowledge, he also discussed meaning that he counted bhakti as one of the processes of Jnana Yoga. And there also we discussed why Krishna is including bhakti in the list of Jnana Yoga is because without a tinge of bhakti, a Jnana Yogi will not be able to achieve liberation, will not be able to achieve their goal. So for them, bhakti is not the goal, bhakti is just the means. But for a bhakti yogi, bhakti is the means and bhakti is the goal. However, this Jnana yogi whom we are discussing about, for him, bhakti is just a means. He will use bhakti in order to transcend the modes and become situated in the impersonal effulgence. He will get to that qualification. After that, he may give up bhakti. So his bhakti is not unmotivated or purely motivated or with pure motivation. For lack of clear translation, I'm just saying that for lacking without pure motivation, he may practice bhakti. But even then, he has to practice it unfailing in all circumstances. So that is what is the Jnani is expected. But a Bhakta is expected ahaituka, means unmotivated, like not having any other motivation than pleasing Krishna. So we have higher standard in that sense. For a Jnana yogi here in discussion, all that he is expected is that he is unfailing in his execution. So one is in terms of intention and the other is in terms of execution. Tuki is having a pure intention and Rena is unfailing in one's execution. So here, the intention of the Jnana Yogi is not discussed. The execution of his bhakti is discussed. So even though a person is a Jnani, If he wants to transcend the material nature, he needs to understand that the Supreme Being is the ultimate shelter, and that Supreme Being is beyond the modes. And only by taking shelter of one who is beyond the modes through the process of bhakti, even the Jnani can actually transcend the influence of the three modes. So I think it's a logical conclusion here. So if I can take Mother Indra's question, if anybody has anything related to what we discussed so far, if it's confusing, please let me know. Mother Indra?
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that initially, and I forgot. So I remembered you saying that the Gita is referring to the Jnani yogi. And so when do we know, like in each purport, is Prabhupada more talking about the devotee then?
Prabhupada is always talking in his purports throughout the Bhagavad Gita from beginning to end from the perspective of a bhakti. Prabhupada's translation and purport predominantly is from that viewpoint. He is giving us the final conclusive understanding from the perspective of bhakti and also from Krishna's conclusion of the Bhagavad Gita. So he uses that scale from the beginning to end. So sometimes the verse may be technically speaking about a different yoga and a different yogi, but Prabhupada may mostly be discussing how does a devotee approach this verse. But that is the perspective that usually Prabhupada speaks about. Scholars sometimes get irritated with that because technical people would like to know what's happening exactly. But what Prabhupada is doing is he is staying true to the spirit of the Bhagavad Gita, because Krishna is telling something of a lower nature, and then he builds on it, and then he builds on it, and then gives the conclusion. Arjuna was patient enough to hear the whole conversation and understand its conclusion and apply it. However, people in this world may not be able to go through the whole Gita in one chunk and understand it and understands Krishna's conclusion and then apply it. People may just randomly read one section and think this is in Gita, so it must be practiced by me. But actually, each section, each verse is spoken for a different person, for someone with a different qualification. So that is why Prabhupada approaches each verse from the perspective of one who's qualified for bhakti. Because ideally, everybody is qualified for bhakti if we are willing to. So he approaches every verse and interprets every verse and gives purport to each verse from the perspective of a devotee and for a person who is qualified to take to bhakti, or like who can take to bhakti. That is the perspective he takes. So that is why sometimes we may see, even in sections which is not directly speaking about bhakti, Prabhupada is interpreting the verse, especially in the purport, as if it is just concerned about bhakti yoga. Did it confuse you enough?
No, that was very good. Thank you.
So that is why sometimes devotees, we are used to reading Prabhupada's purports and Prabhupada's style of interpreting. So we may gloss over the technicalities of the book itself, which is not a problem as long as you are unfailing in your devotional service. You will cross over the three modes of material nature, and also not just crossing over the three modes of material nature, will develop affection for Krishna and love for Krishna, so that your goal is achieved. So Prabhupada does not give a damn about what technicality this verse is dealing about and what is the flow. He is not worried about. He is saying, all I want is for you to actually become a lover of Krishna. So he comes from a very bird's eye viewpoint of life. And with an emergency, he just inspires everyone and interprets everyone from the perspective of a devotee. He's too eager to give us bhakti, and he feels there is not much time. It's an emergency. Human life is short. Kali Yuga, the ability to understand, retain, apply is very minimal. So if a person has little interest, let me give them the conclusion. And even if they didn't get everything, at least if they got the conclusion, got inspired to commit themselves to Krishna, then Krishna will give them the intelligence to understand the details much better later. So I did not start practicing bhakti because I understood the Bhagavad Gita. In fact, I did not understand it at all in the beginning. So my ability to understand the Bhagavad Gita came because I was practicing bhakti sadhana and being purified by the bhakti sadhana and by hearing from the teachers. Gradually, I have developed some understanding of the Bhagavad. So people go the other way, but Prabhupada believes in the potency of bhakti. So he gives us the process of bhakti first, and from there he has complete faith that if we become a lover of Krishna, we will understand Bhagavad Gita in the best way possible. And that is why when one of his disciples asked, Prabhupada, after you finish all of these books, like Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam and Chaitanya Charitamrita, what will you comment after that? He thought Prabhupada will say some esoteric books of Radha Krishna Leela, and that's what he was thinking in his mind. And Prabhupada turned and said, I'll be commenting on Bhagavad Gita. And Prabhupada said, he said, Prabhupada, already you wrote one Bhagavad Gita, so why would you comment again? He said, that is only one perspective. There are more commentaries, there are more perspectives, and there are more ways to present it. So I can actually work on more technical side of it. He said, now I have presented it in a way that it inspires everyone in bhakti and stays true to its conclusion completely. So he said, I can also go and present it in a technical way and still being conclusive and still staying true to what Krishna says at the conclusion, but actually go through the flow in the way that Krishna takes it in a technical way. He said, I wish that I could do that. So he did wanted to write at least 20 commentaries on the Bhagavad Gita. So there are many perspectives and themes that we could take. Hope that helps have a perspective, Mother.
That was really nice. Thank you so much. It also makes me realize that I have to go through the synonyms to really see the words.
Yes. Yeah. So the more we are like committed in our practice, these things can actually help. And also there are teachers who speak about these perspectives that Prabhupada could not just emphasize in one book, because any author can only write a book in one perspective. If you bring in too many perspectives in one commentary in one go, it will just completely confuse the reader. So you have to choose what is the audience, who's the audience, and what is one perspective that you really want to emphasize. There is always a goal for an author. He has an audience in mind and he has an objective to achieve. So that is why each acharya has a different audience. They lived in a different time of the world and their current society. Based on that, they all commented. If you read Baladev Vidyabhushan's commentary, it has a different perspective. If you read Thakur, he has a complete different perspective. And so each one wrote, and it would continue. Different devotees would continue to write because the social circumstances change, and also the connotations of the words and the culture changes. So in order to actually present the essence of Krishna's teachings in a way that is compatible and relatable to the current audience is the duty of the ongoing chain of teachers. So I understand why Prabhupada had to just stick to one perspective, because you cannot do justice if you actually jumble multiple perspectives in a book.
If like Prabhupada wanted to write like a multiple perspectives and different perspectives, and he wanted to like have the commentary from different authors or something like that, and he wanted to focus on different only one type of audience, then in that case, like how the book became like as it is. It's not as it is. Then in that case, it's not Bhagavad Gita as it is.
Why do you think it is not as it is?
Because if you have different perspectives, you are not telling from however Krishna have told to Arjuna. They're getting like different perspectives in that case, telling in different ways. It's not exactly like what Krishna told to Arjuna.
So what is as it is basically staying true to the conclusion what Krishna wanted to present.
So at the end, like whatever, like us only that.
Yeah, that is because he is trying to convince Arjuna and he's taking through a journey. But the problem is, if our audience is like simple and if they may not get the conclusion. So Prabhupada's idea was, first let them get what is the conclusion, which is bhakti. And if they continue to practice it, they will surely get everything else, because the other acharyas have written the other perspectives. Baldev Vidyabhushan ji's commentary is pretty much follows the technical mood of what Krishna is trying to say. And if you read Chakravarti Thakur, he is always speaking in a Vrindavan perspective. It's like rasa. He just always takes it to very esoteric levels, right? Even in Bhagavad Gita. So those different, one is super technical and the one is other rasic, esoteric. He had both those already in the some. What he did not have was something which was immediately able to inspire his audience of the 20th century and the 21st century, and of course ongoing, to actually get inspired to take to bhakti. That's what was lacking. There were so many other people who were trying to present it technically, but they were not successful in emphasizing the conclusion and making a person actually surrender to Krishna. So Prabhupada's focus was, that is why he says it is as it is, because actual conclusion of the Bhagavad Gita is Krishna wants the soul to surrender to him. And Prabhupada wrote the whole book from that perspective. That is why it is as it is. He is not saying that anything against what Krishna says. He is just always saying from the perspective of the conclusion what Krishna is saying and how to interpret it from the perspective of conclusion. For example, if I have to give a practical example, if a child is crying, I'm telling the child so many things, but my goal is to actually convince the child to take the medicine. I may say so many things in the course of the conversation, but my final goal is, okay, take this medicine. So similarly, and so Prabhupada is seeing the whole understanding. He knows the heart of Krishna. He can say that he has the credibility or the qualification to say that I understand the heart of Krishna. That is an acharya. He is in touch with Krishna fully, and he can confidently say, I understand the heart of Krishna. And that is why Krishna empowered him to write this. And that is why we see the result of this Bhagavad Gita also is very different from any other Bhagavad Gita. So he understood the heart of Krishna and he actually presented according to that. And that is why he got success in being able to inspire people to become devotees of Krishna. So if a technical person trying to analyze Bhagavad Gita may sometimes take an objection to what Prabhupada says, because he is not wanting to love Krishna. He is just trying to understand the book, which is not wrong. But sometimes people want to understand the book for the sake of understanding it, not to apply it. So Prabhupada is not interested in that dry academic purpose. Prabhupada is interested in the actual application and the effect that the book is supposed to have according to Krishna on the audience. That is why he spoke Bhagavad Gita. And that Prabhupada understood that heart and presented according to that. And that's why we see people get inspired by to become a devotee by reading this Gita. If they did not get an inspiration to become a Jnana Yogi or a Karma Yogi, that is not anyway Krishna's final objective, to make someone Karma Yogi or Jnana Yogi or Ashtanga Yogi. Krishna's objective is to inspire one to surrender unto himself fully in devotion. However, he also accommodated the other paths to be able to see, like, if I want to glorify bhakti, the only way is to actually to also compare the effect of bhakti yoga over other paths. Sometimes we say this particular a particular newspaper, say for example, it's an example I heard from someone, that this paper so and so Washington Post has 100,000 circulation, New York Post has this much, blah blah, all these things, and then our newspaper, it has 500,000. That means my purpose of writing was not to inform the author about the circulation of New York Post or Washington Post or anything else. My purpose in writing that was to inform the author, inform the reader that my paper is the best and it sells the most. So for Krishna, in order to emphasize bhakti and its glories, he is explaining karma, jnana, ashtanga, and all of those things. But in order to actually eventually use all these explanations to glorify bhakti indirectly and directly, that is why he is mentioning other paths, purely for the purpose of being able to glorify bhakti directly and indirectly. And we will see it in so many chapters. At the end of the chapter, Krishna will hint directly or indirectly something about bhakti. You can see that in chapter 5, in chapter 6, in chapter 7, chapter 8, chapter 9. You will see at the end of the chapter, even if sometimes the chapter is not directly speaking about bhakti, like 4, 5, 6 is not directly speaking about bhakti, but the last verse will speak about Krishna unequivocally in a very personal way, 5 and 6 especially. And you see, this is a chapter which speaks about Jnana Yoga, but Krishna very clearly takes the now uses the word bhakti. Why? If this is a Jnana Yoga section and if this is a Jnana Yogi, why does he need bhakti in order to actually transcend the modes?
Bhakti is part of everything, right? Like a bhakti is part of karma yoga, bhakti is part of gnana yoga, then it doesn't become yoga at all if there is no bhakti in there. So
So
bhakti
what
is
is he
part of
doing is,
each and every things.
yeah, perfect, as you rightly saying. So what does that mean? What is it ending up glorifying actually? It shows the
Bhakti,
indispensable role of bhakti. So the
bhakti.
idea of Krishna is not to glorify Jnana Yoga. The idea of Krishna is to indirectly glorify and show how indispensable bhakti is, even if you are not a bhakti yogi. So that is why he exclusively glorifies bhakti, but he also indirectly shows how bhakti is indispensable even for a karma yogi or for a jnana yogi or for an ashtanga yogi. So in that way, the whole process book of Bhagavad Gita is to glorify bhakti directly and indirectly. So that is the heart. And because Prabhupada understands that and applies that same mood throughout the Bhagavad Gita, he directly glorifies bhakti because he knows Kali Yuga's conditioned souls will not get it. And that is why it is as it is, because he understands the heart of Krishna and achieves the purpose of Krishna that he meant to achieve through speaking Bhagavad Gita.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Does that answer your question, Matthew?
So
Yeah.
with the verse, what I understood was like when you are with unwavering devotion, like with unwavering bhakti, if we are like a serving Krishna
Mm.
with all this, you are like beyond these three modes, and then you are serving Krishna, then you will get that aha moment, right? Okay, you are in, like for a few, we might be getting like only for a few seconds, like you are very close to Krishna, something like that. The aha moment. That moment is the Brahma, or Brahma, something like that. That's what
Okay.
I understood from that verse.
So you are saying that how we experience that spiritually now being equal to Krishna in quality, like that experiencing that transcendence. That Prabhupada also touches upon if you see the purport, that he says the king, if to be a servant of a king, one needs to be qualified. Similarly, in order to become a devotee, to be able to serve Krishna, one needs to be same in quality as Krishna. However, that could be one way to see, but Brahman is an objective existence also. Brahman is a state of consciousness which is also an objective state of consciousness. So both are there. So you are also again interpreting it from the perspective of a devotee. However, from the literal point of view, Brahman is also one achieves that state of Brahman consciousness, that being beyond the three modes and not. What is that Brahman consciousness is again explained in the 18th chapter. There also he uses the word bhakti. So there also that verse is speaking about Jnana Yoga, and Krishna says by the practice of perfection of Jnana Yoga, what does one achieve? One becomes Brahman. What is that person? Symptoms, Prasannatma, he becomes very satisfied with what? He is not hankering or lamenting for anything material. So he is able to see everyone with an equal vision, does not have hatred or attachment to anybody. And from that state, if he is willing, if that person is interested on that platform, he can get devotional service if he wants. An impersonalist may well want to just remain in that state and experience Brahman happiness. But if they want, they can actually get bhakti if they want. So it is also an objective state of consciousness, and we may experience a little glimpse of it sometimes in terms of being experiencing. So what we experience, that happiness, is not necessarily Brahman happiness. It is actually in connection with Krishna. So it is much better, I would say, objectively speaking. We are getting a glimpse of being connected to Krishna in service in a more personal way, though to the extent we are actually taking shelter of Krishna. So it is not just an impersonal level of happiness. It is a happiness that is coming from connection with Krishna. So even though it may be a small flicker of happiness, it is still much better than in quality the Brahman happiness. How do I say that? Like, you could have 100,000 Indian rupees and you could have, what do you call, like $10. In our current state of consciousness in bhakti, we may have what is worth $10. It's a very crude example. Don't take it literally. In our current state of Krishna consciousness, we may get a glimpse of happiness, which can be compared to, just instead of having actually $100,000, we are just having $10. The 100,000 rupees may be in comparison bigger than someone who has achieved complete perfection in Brahman consciousness may experience like a different level of happiness. In quantity, it may look like it is a lot. They are more advanced. However, by qualification, what a rupee can achieve is different. What a dollar can achieve is different. So I may have only a small glimpse of bhakti enjoyment or that happiness coming from bhakti. Still, it is of a very higher quality. It may be in quantity lesser. I may still have a lot more to achieve and become situated, but still it is coming from connection to Krishna. So it is qualitatively higher, because the Brahman happiness is a different kind of happiness. It is more of peace. It's a happiness that comes from peace. It is not a happiness that comes from connection. So hope it helps. I didn't want to confuse anybody, but I know inadvertently I end up doing that. That's my style. So if there is anything clarify, you could clarify, Mother Gayatri.
No, thank you, Roji. Yeah.
Okay. So let's go to the slides. Like today, I haven't gone to that at all. So I also have to still answer the questions that we raised initially. So, okay, then let's do those questions quickly. One or two questions, there are a couple of things which I had to be addressed quickly, and then go through the verses. This is already 10. My God, I get sometimes very spontaneous, and then everything is remaining. So the first question we discussed, we explored with Purva and others like Sundaranand Prabhu and myself, all of us expressing that how that is. So I sometimes I'm unfailing, but sometimes I'm failing. So what happens about to my bhakti? When will I become unfailing? And until then, is it all a waste of time? What is that? What is the process? And even if you tell me bhakti is the process, my God, I've been trying to do it for so long. Like, why is it still not unfailing? Is it worth? When it will become, why is Krishna feeling so far away? Why is perfection feeling so far away? So when all these doubts come and we feel, so that's, I think it's all mixed in that one question that what Sundarananda Prabhu, Purva, and all of them expressed. So how can we actually practice unfailing bhakti when the modes are actually causing us to fail? Because I'm within the modes, I'm not able to do unfailing bhakti. If I won't do unfailing bhakti, I want to be able to cross over the three modes. So a classic chicken egg problem. Am I stating it clearly? Because I am under the influence of the three modes, I cannot practice unfailing bhakti. And because I cannot practice unfailing bhakti, I cannot go beyond the three modes. So it seems like Krishna has given us a solution, but it looks like he has just tricked us. So what's happening? So how do we understand this? How can we practice unfailing bhakti when the modes are actually causing us to fail continuously? So the idea is Bhakti Yoga is a connection with the supremely omnipotent divine person who exists forever beyond the influence of the three modes of material nature. So the stronger our connection with him, the lesser the modes disruptive influence on us. So what we have to focus is, how can I actually connect with Krishna? But our problem is we happily allow us to be influenced by modes and cry about it instead of standing up and using our determination. Determination will not come one overnight like a magic. We have to use the little determination we have to choose Krishna. And if we fail, again stand up and realize, I forgot to choose Krishna. Let me again choose Krishna. So the more and more we reduce the frequency of our failings and we increase the frequency of us choosing Krishna, it will gradually happen. So Krishna, the Bhakti Yoga process is like that small boat which is floating in that big ocean. Immediately, we are like trying drowning, and then we see the small log of wood. We hold on to it. So then we are sailing now. Still, we will be wet. Still, the waves will crash on us. But what do? You hold on to the wood even more because you understand without this, I don't have a chance against the waves of the ocean. So the more the waves are crashing on us, the more we actually hold on to the wood as if it's our life, because it is our life. Similarly, the more we realize that the modes are distracting us, the more we realize, if we really realize, what we would do is we would take shelter of Bhakti. We would be one step ahead of our mind, one step ahead of the modes, and plan what are and list what are the things that actually distract me. When do they distract me? In what ways do they distract me? And do I really need Krishna? How much do I really want Krishna in my heart? So we would become honest. And when you really become honest, you will see there is a huge gap in our hearts, that yes, we like Krishna, we love Krishna, but we also love so many other things and attached to so many things. So it need not actually dishearten us. Rather, we have to see, yes, despite all of these things, I do love Krishna and I do want to be a devotee. So what I have to do is continue to choose Krishna more and reduce the probability of choosing other things. And no one else will be able to do that for us. And again, oh my God, that's what I'm not able to do. That is the problem, that I'm not able to choose Krishna more and choose other things less. Start with what you have. Can you choose once out of 10? Choose one and pray and try sincerely. You'll be able to do it two. You'll be able to do it three. It is a question of sincerity, and no one can actually do it for us. And if we are failing in some circumstances, does not mean we are a complete failure. It just shows that we have chosen 5 times and we have failed 5 times. So we do have the ability to choose. It's just that we have to grow and take shelter of Krishna, pray. Naturally, the ability will grow. And the more you become sincere and serious, then we will be able to gradually, step by step, improve. So there is no need to become disheartened. Rather, we have to see, oh, if Krishna actually has helped me become a devotee despite me being completely absorbed in modes, why would he not help me now that actually I'm wanting to be a devotee? I was not at all a devotee. Krishna helped me now. Why would he not help me when I'm actually trying to become a devotee? So Krishna may feel far away, but Krishna is never far away. We have to ask, why am I feeling Krishna is far away when he is not actually? Krishna is never far away. Just ask, why am I feeling? It's usually the lower modes influence. Try to reduce the influence of the lower modes in our lives and choose the sattva guna. Then also practice bhakti. It will become gradually better. It is not an overnight thing. However, there is no point in becoming disheartened, because that is the trick of the 3 modes. So don't think Krishna is far away, or you lack an ability to, you will never be able to be unfailing in bhakti. That is how Maya tricks us, because it has convinced us that I can never be unfailing in bhakti because I have failed so many times. How can I be unfailing in bhakti? I have failed so many times again and again. So Maya is the one who tricks us to fail, and then after we fail, it mocks on us. You don't have any free determination. You just did this. So it will be the instigator, and later it becomes the tormentor. So understanding these tricks of the mind, the more and more we release ourselves from the grips of guilt and shame, rather we just genuinely understand what's happening inside. And the more and more we start to see those layers of things happening, we'll be able to gradually choose Krishna and have confidence in Krishna and confidence in ourselves that we will be able to choose Krishna one day fully and completely. Mother Indra, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much. This is my favorite chapter because it very much reminds me constantly of my struggle and why I have a struggle. But what I really loved was earlier in your teachings, you mentioned, if you're going to do something not devotional, I don't know, go out for a vegan dinner or whatever, just think of it as, oh, Krishna, this is my offering to you, or even watching something silly on Netflix, Krishna, this is my offering to you, like constantly putting Krishna ahead of what we're about to do when it's not devotional service, instead of feeling guilty for not doing something purely devotional. So I really appreciated that because it just constantly just reminds me of Krishna throughout the day, which is better than it was before he said that.
And also realizing honestly, and also coming to a state where we choose what is favorable and get a strength to say or let go of things which is not favorable. That will also come. So we could also pray for that. Krishna, in my current state, this feels like more like I need this. However, if you think that I don't need this, please give me the strength so that I can say no to the things that is not favorable for bhakti, that reduces the influence of the lower modes. I currently don't have the strength. Please help me develop that strength to be able to say no instead of thinking I'm just a bad person.
And also just the fact that you're constantly thinking of him, you definitely for sure decide, maybe I don't need to go do that. I'll do this instead. Yeah, absolutely.
So what stops us from growing is sometimes we just relinquish to the fact that I'm a bad person, I can never improve. Or we end up justifying whatever we are doing. It's okay, don't be a fanatic. It's okay to just do this or that. So neither is going to actually help us in bhakti. Rather acknowledging, I really have this attraction for this thing. And I understand this is not perfectly healthy for my spiritual life, but currently I'm not having the strength to say no. So then we express it to someone whom we are accountable to, and also pray to Krishna. Krishna, this is my current state. I would like to be free of this, but I don't have a strength. So please help me. So just using that opportunity also to turn to Krishna and take that help. So that is also part of bhakti. And then also engaging in our own practices with a prayer that please help me develop that taste where I can just be fully focused on things which are favorable to loving Krishna more and being situated in the mode of goodness. So it's a gradual thing. Shaming ourselves or justifying our actions, neither actually works. Accepting and being open to grow and having faith that I do have the ability to choose Krishna 100%. I can do it. Maybe I'm not able to do it currently, does not mean that I'll never be able to do it. Maybe it's those pure devotees, but not me. No, having that complete faith, I can be a pure devotee one day. And this is the process for that. So having that faith is also very important. Hope that was added to something what you said, Madhurendra. And here, sorry, you're about to say something?
No, I was going to say yes, it did. Thank you.
Thank you. So bhakti is like, basically this verse is speaking of like beyond neutrality, bhakti gives positive absorption. It's not just rising above the modes, but rising into a relationship with Krishna. That is the difference between the bhakti being used by a jnana yogi and the bhakti followed by a bhakti yogi. So a jnana yogi is using bhakti to just rise above the modes and be neutral. He is not interested in a relationship with Krishna. But when a bhakti yogi practices bhakti, it gives them a positive absorption. And rising above the modes is just a byproduct. Rather, what is bhakti yoga doing is helping them rise into a relationship with Krishna. So, bhakti, through the process of bhakti, transcendence is a byproduct. And we see that how Prabhupada highlighted in the purport that engaging in bhakti yoga with determination elevates one beyond the modes into eternal spiritual quality. So although these modes are very difficult to overcome, one can overcome them easily by bhakti yoga. comparatively. We are not going to the forest. We are not like standing on one leg, or we are not doing all of those things. Just simple practices of worshipping Krishna, chanting Krishna's names. That is the foremost thing. And accepting prasadam and reading the scriptures, associating with devotees who have love for Krishna by the simple process, which anyway, most of those things we do as part of daily life. Just by doing those things, one can naturally rise above and become a lover of Krishna. So Bhakti Yoga means that the Lord is there, the devotee is there, and the activity of exchange of love between the Lord and the devotee is there. So in Bhakti Yoga, it's never that I use Bhakti and then eventually I become one with Brahman. Rather, the Bhakti Yoga involves or necessitates the presence of all the three facts. The Lord is eternal, the devotee is eternal, and the exchange of love, which is Bhakti, is also eternal. All three are always present. It's not at the stage of perfection the devotee becomes one with the Lord in terms of extinguishing their experience, or gives up the process of bhakti, now thinks that they are equal to God. That is not the idea of Bhakti Yoga at all. And here this verse very clearly explains that only exit ramp from the material world. Meditation, morality, mindfulness, all of these things that we see in today's world, sold by so many self-help coaches and neo traditions, may ease the ride, but only devotion gets you off the runway of the modes. Without bhakti, there is no takeoff. We can actually, many of these things can ease the ride, but can never actually take us above the modes. And bhakti is not about escape, it's about elevation. So we're not like trying to escape the three modes, we are elevating the quality of our consciousness and service to Krishna. So the transcendence of not just like transcending the three modes, but entering into transcendence, entering into a relationship with Krishna, that can only be unlocked through devotion, through Bhakti Yoga. When a Jnana Yogi practices Bhakti, maybe they can transcend the three modes. However, they won't be enter into the spiritual world in a relationship with Krishna. That only Bhakti can unlock. And that brings us to the last verse, which I'll complete in a few minutes. The translation and purport. And I am the basis of the impersonal Brahman, which is immortal, imperishable, and eternal, and is the constitutional position of ultimate happiness. This is a longer purport. I really wanted to go through this purport too. Please read the purport. This purport also speaks about Brahman realization, Paramatma realization, Bhagavan realization, which we had already discussed in different parts of the Bhagavad Gita. He speaks about it very clearly. And he also speaks that how the living entity, although Brahman by nature, means in spiritually it is also Sachidananda. And because it has a desire to lord it over the material world, it is currently under the grips of the three modes. Due to association with the three modes, it has got entangled and it is desiring to dominate the material world. But by Prabhupada takes a bhakti perspective, he says, but by engagement in devotional service, one can become situated in the transcendental position. And not that one's unlawful desire to control the material nature is removed. That is the most important thing. So the process of devotional service is potent in removing, in transforming that enjoyer tendency and the controller tendency into a tendency to serve. And that's what Prabhupada says. Devotional service to the Lord is very simple. Just chant and take prasadam and worship the deities and observe the festivals, etc. So the other question that can come is, in the previous verse, people asked, why are we speaking about Brahman? Because this is the Jnana Yoga section, and the goal of a Jnana Yogi is to merge in Brahman, or is to achieve impersonal Brahman realization. So that's why Krishna said, by practicing bhakti, you can transcend the modes and attain to the platform of Brahman. And then he is making sure that it is very clear that who is the basis of that Brahman. I am the foundation of that Brahman. So we have always discussed that how the personal feature of Krishna, Bhagavan, is the central feature, and he expands as Paramatma and Brahman, impersonal Brahman. So here, this verse again explains that perspective, that I am the basis of the impersonal Brahman. The impersonal Brahman is immortal, imperishable, and eternal. And however, who's the basis of that? Who's the basis of that? That basis is actually Krishna. And that's what is being discussed in this verse. And let's go through the slides. And if needed, we could always discuss later. Krishna is the basis of Brahman, and the ultimate truth is personal, blissful, and relational. The impersonal Brahman may have some bliss in it, but the ultimate bliss is with Krishna. So beyond Brahman is Krishna himself, the living source of eternity and bliss. So even Brahman realization is incomplete without Krishna. Only bhakti ensures stability. So in spite of being raised to the Brahman platform, Prabhupada says there is a chance of falling down if one is not engaged in devotional service. So beyond the light, beyond the Brahman, there is the Supreme Lord. So lasting happiness comes not just in the impersonal freedom, but in relationship. More than lasting happiness, I would change it as complete happiness comes, not in impersonal freedom, but in relationship with Krishna. So beyond the light of freedom is the warmth of relationship with Krishna. So people who has not experienced it may not value it. It's not that I have realized it, but because of the association with a devotee like Prabhupada, we have developed and awakened a little bit, even if it is like 0.000001% of appreciation for personal association with Krishna, that has come by the association of devotee. So the source beyond Brahman, that's what we are interested in as devotees. The sun, we are not just interested in the sunshine alone, but the sun itself, the source of sunshine. So Prabhupada says Brahman is the beginning of transcendental realization. Paramatma, the super soul, is the middle, the second stage in transcendental realization. And the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Bhagavan Shri Krishna, is the ultimate realization of the absolute truth. So Prabhupada says that in the purport. So we can ask, do I seek freedom as independence? Do I see liberation, or do I see perfection as independence, or do I see perfection as connection with Krishna, as actual dependence on Krishna? Because that is the difference between an impersonal and a personal. So liberation is possible even while we are embodied. That's what we saw in this section. Bhakti is the only guaranteed way to actually not just transcend the modes, but also to be in an eternal relationship with Krishna. And bhakti is the only guaranteed way to be able to transcend the modes, even if you are a Jnana Yogi. Without the practice of tinge of bhakti, even if you are a Jnana Yogi, you won't be able to transcend the modes. And that is the implication of the verse 26. That even if you're a Jnana Yogi who is very highly advanced, without taking shelter of bhakti, without actually becoming humble and taking shelter of the bhakti, even if it as a means, even temporarily, one has to bow down and practice bhakti and accept subordination, even just for the sake of being able to transcend. That is why it is not pure motivation, it is unfailing devotional service, because the Jnani will not have a pure motivation. They will tend to use bhakti. They may currently think, I will bow down to this God, but eventually I don't want any relationship with this person. All I want is to be able to transcend the modes and be situated in the Brahman. So real freedom begins when we see that the modes, not the soul, are driving material activity. It does not mean that I'm not responsible for it. We saw the example of a self-driving car. Even though the car is actually taking us, we are still responsible because we chose to sit in the car, start the car, and enter a destination. So the modes may be actually taking us to a certain destination, but we have chosen the modes also. So beyond that, we only have the ability to choose. Beyond that, the modes will take us, but we still are responsible for choosing the mode. So when nothing outside shakes you, you have found the real. That's a cheesy thing. I'm not even. In my life, what does unfailing devotion look like in practice? Where am I actually? Where can I improve? And how can I actually practice it? So love is the ultimate truth. It's not just peace. And love is at the heart of the universe, not just peace. So Prabhupada, again, it's from the purport. One who engages in the service of Krishna is considered to be transcendently situated. Even when we are still not fully perfected, still we are considered, we are transcendently situated because our protection is under Sri Krishna. We are not at the mercy of the three modes alone. Maybe we are currently influenced by it, but ultimately our Lord is Krishna. So thank you very much. And Thank you, Yogeshwari Mataji. So this is the chapter summary. We saw about the three modes. What are they? How they bind the soul? What is their nature, symptoms and characteristics, and how they compete with each other, and what happens when you predominantly remain in a particular mode, that we become conditioned by that modes, and what is the consequences on our actions, on our mindset, on our destination. And then we discussed how real vision is to see then how the soul is being moved by the three modes helplessly when being conditioned. And when we really understand the influence of the three modes, how it's acting on us, and we know the Supreme Lord who's beyond the three modes, then liberation is possible. And Arjuna asked, what is the person's symptoms and conduct of one who has actually transcended, and how do I transcend the modes? And Krishna explains the symptoms on the conduct of a person who has transcended from verses 22 to 25. And he speaks about the process to transcend in 26 and 27, which we briefly discussed today. So thank you very much. And I would say it's a good enough overview of the chapter 14. We could always discuss more, but I think it's good enough to move on to the next chapter 15. So in the coming week, hopefully, Krishna willing, that we can actually start with the chapter 15. So go back, read this chapter if you want to go over, and if you have any questions, you could always ask. And also start reading the 15th chapter, at least the first 5 verses, I would say, at least the 5 verses, if not more. Start reading the 15th verse, get used to it, and we will start discussing next week. And I'll be in Dallas, so I could be in a different setup. I hope I will not cancel the classes, because I haven't kept any engagement in the morning, but still I have clarified to my host that this is time I would like to continue with my classes. Sometimes when you travel, you are at the mercy of the host. So sometimes things are like complicated in terms of travel and organizing. So Krishna willing, 99.9%, I'm hoping that we will continue the Gita class next week. So start reading the 15th chapter, get used to it. And I wish I could send you a summary and orientation to the chapter, but I don't have that one pointed dedication just for this course. I'm just like being pulled in all directions. Wish I just did one thing. Maybe in the future, that's what I'm hoping to do, that I can just do one class, and for the rest of the week, I'm just focused on that one class. I wish I could just get back to that state where I could give more attention to that one particular topic. Yeah, but life is not that simple. So I'll try to do my best, and I'll remind in the WhatsApp group, but please read the 14th chapter. And also, it's not just reading the Gita alone. See how you can apply it in your lives. Slow down, become more conscious what you're doing. See honestly, what is the lower mode that is pulling you, be it passion or ignorance. What can you do in terms of small changes to your life to situate yourself in the mode of goodness? I'm not telling you, I'm telling to myself too, because these days my sleep schedule and everything is so messed up. So nobody is about the three modes. Nobody is about those influences. So just slow down and become introspective. It's not just an exercise of knowing more. It is also very important and crucial to apply what we know. So please see what you can actually apply. Where is the influence of the three modes, especially the lower modes, making my life, lowering the quality of my life, and affecting my ability to unfailingly practice bhakti. So most of the times, I was recently speaking to a devotee, how they said, they just sometimes, that person was honest, at least I can appreciate that I don't chant my rounds some days. I was like, what are those days? What are the common, like, what is the underlying common thread in those days when you're unable to chant? I got up late, and then I had to go to job. I have to do all the things that I need to do in a day. And I don't think I have the time during the day. And when I come back, I'm very tired. And I hate myself for not waking up early and not chanting. And now I'm so tired that the whole day I worked hard and my mind just wants some enjoyment. I'm not able to convince myself that chanting is that enjoyment. I'm alone and I just spend hours on my phone just doom scrolling. But sometimes I scroll for so long but I cannot just use that time to chant. I could have easily chanted after coming from work, but it's just that it's just not possible. It's just, I don't want to. It's just that I just don't feel like chanting. But that person said, any day I wake up early, I feel like a saint. I chant all my rounds. I do my worship and I pray and I feel so uplifted and my day goes well. I understand by chanting, my day gets much better in quality. My life becomes much more smooth. It's not my problems vanish, but the quality of my consciousness in dealing with those problems and remaining unaffected is for sure there. But then I asked, can you make sure you can always wake up early? They're like, yeah, I understand, but let me try. So the idea is we are not a bad person. We are also influenced currently. So just because one day we are failing does not mean we are a bad person. And why this person came to me is, I want to stop chanting. It was a complete emotional drama. I don't want to chant this, that. Like my life has become so hard after chanting. And at the end of the conversation, this very person is saying, whenever I get up in the morning, I feel like a saint. I immediately go to my chanting bag. That is all I want to do when I wake up early. And I feel much good. And the day is great. I said, you just messaged me with such emotional, dramatic way that chanting has just made your life miserable. You just feel like a imposter and you don't want to deal with this guilt. There was like a huge drama here. How come you are the same person saying that chanting actually makes you feel better? So it's just that mind makes us become more dramatic and take away the very shelter that will help us get free from the influence of the three modes. Mind exactly dismantles with its drama, it dismantles our very shelter and makes us feel that we are thinking very logically, that bhakti is the problem, Krishna is the problem. If I was not a devotee, I would have been so peaceful. But this very person was so frustrated in life that they took up to bhakti and then experienced so much relief from it and continues to experience whenever they practice better. However, the influence of the modes creates too much drama. So see through the drama. Don't become like grasped or pulled into that drama. See that drama, see through that drama. Don't get just completely involved in that drama. See through the tricks of the mind. For that, we need to slow down and you need to be very honest and just have that faith that if Krishna has helped me in the past, he will continue to help me in the future and in the present. He is never going to be away from us. Even when we did not know he existed, he made us realize that he is there and he helped us know his existence. So now we have even a small tinge interest in knowing him. Why would he not help us? So have that unfailing faith in Krishna, which will eventually make us unfailing in our execution of bhakti. So never lose that unfailing faith in Krishna, because unfailing execution will take time. Until then, it is the unfailing faith we have in Krishna's protection and care and love and our teacher and as Guru that will actually help us sail through this phase of repeated failings in devotional service. Unfailing devotional service will not come as a magic one fine day. Success comes through a series of failures. So these failing bhakti that we do will eventually bring us to a state where we can be unfailing in bhakti also. Have that faith, and that's what will actually nourish us and help us. So this commentary was completely unexpected.